Hello YouTube! We are on the Real Programming channel. I'm its host, my name is Andrei. I greet you, welcome you. This is our 14th lesson. It's about HTML and JavaScript. We'll talk about giving the button click handler. Okay, we got a button and we got a function that will act as a handler. Handle button click, so let's put them together. To do that, we are going to use a property of the button click. We set the onclick property like this. Okay, don't forget, remember, please, you will find all the code and materials of this lesson under this video in the description link to Google Drive. With the button in hand, after calling getElement by ID, we set the onclick property to the function we want to call, then a click event occurs. You might remember that we did something similar when we used the window.onload property to call a function after the window was loaded. In this case, Toad will call the function when the button is clicked. Now let's put all this together. So, we find it. This. Okay, so we don't load in it. Just like we did in this last chapter, we are using an init function that won't be called and executed until the page is fully loaded. After the page loads, we'll grab the button and set up its onclick handler. And then the click handler will display an alert when we click on the button. Putting it to a test. Go ahead and type in the code above. In your playlist.javascript file, load the page. Click on that button as much as you want and you will see an alert each time. After you finish testing your new button click handler, sit back and study the code and think about how all this works. When you think you got it in your head, turn the page and we'll step through details to make sure it really sticks. A closer look at what just happened. We just introduced a lot of new ideas over the last few pages. Let's step through the code again and make sure we've got it clear in our heads. Here we go. First, the thing you did was throw the button in your HTML form, and with that in place you needed a way to capture a user's click and that button so that you could have some code executed. To do that, we created a handler and assigned it to a click property of our button. Okay, the button object has an onclick property that we set to the handleButtonClick function. We set up the button click event handler in the init function. That is after the page has finished loading. When the user clicks on the button, the click event is triggered and the handleButtonClick function is called. 2. You also write a simple handle that just alerts that user that the button was clicked. We'll be writing the real code for the handler in a sec, but this one works well for testing. The handler with your code. 3. With the code written, the page is loaded and displayed, and by the browsers the handler is installed. It's call all up to the user now. Come on, click the button, just do it. Finally, 4. The user clicks on your button, the button springs into action, notices it has a handler and calls it. To wake up, there's a click from the user. I see I have a handler for this, better let him know. Okay. And getting the song name. We're ready to move on to the second step of our task, getting the song name that the user has typed in. Once we have that, we can think about how we're going to display the playlist in the browser. But how are we going to get the song name? That's something the user has typed in right. But anything that happens in the web page gets reflected in the DOM, so the text the user typed must be there too. To get the text from a form text input element, you first have to get the input element from the DOM, and you know how to do that with element by ID. And once you've done that, you can use the value property of the text input element to access the text the user types into the form field. Here's how. This is the element we want to get from the DOM. We'll use its ID song text input to get it. Here is the body part of the DOM. Using the getElementById method, we can get a handle to the song text input element in the form. Then we can use the value property of the input element to get the text the user typed into the input field. Do you ready for exercise? Sharpen your pencil. Rework the handleButtonClick function below to obtain the name of the song user has typed. And has typed into the form input element. Check your answer in the solution, will be in the end of this chapter. Okay, bonus exercise. Wait, what if you wanted to test to make sure the user actually entered some text before clicking the button? How might you do that? Answer will be in the next lesson or in the end of the chapter. There are no dumb questions. Let's go. So, what is the value of the value property of the text input if the user didn't type anything? Is that value null? Or does the add song button not evoke the handler if the user hasn't entered anything? The add song button isn't that smart. If you want to determine if the user typed something, that's up to your code and to know if the text input is empty. That is, the user didn't type anything. You can check to see if its value is equal to a string with nothing in it, otherwise known as empty string, which is written as, or two double quotes with nothing in between. We see why you think it might be null, because we say that it is the value of a variable that has no value. But from the text input value's perspective, it isn't holding nothing, it's holding on to a string with nothing in it. Go figure. I thought that the text input value was an attribute. You're calling it a property. Why? You're right, value is an attribute of the HTML text input element. You can initialize the value of a text input element using the value attribute. But in JavaScript, to access the value that a user has typed in, you need to use the value property of the input element we get from the DOM. What other kinds of events can handle in JavaScript other than button clicks? There are a whole slew of other mouse events you can handle. For instance, you can delete, detect and handle a key, press a mouse, moving over or out of an element, the mouse dragging, even a mouse press and hold different from a mouse click. And then there are many other types of events we've maintained in a pacing, like events when new data is available, timer events, events related to the browser window, and so on. You'll see quite a few other kinds of event handling in the rest of the book. Once you know how to do one, you can pretty much do them all. what is JavaScript doing while it's waiting for events, unless you programmed your JavaScript to do something. It is idle until something happens. The user interacts with the interface that comes in from the web, a timer goes off, and so on. This is a good thing. It means the processing power of your computer is going to other things like making your browser responsive. Later in the book, you'll learn how to create tasks that run in the background so your browser can run the task code and respond to events at that same time. Okay, exercise and how do we add a song to the page. We'll talk about this in the next lesson. And this is our 14th lesson about HTML and JavaScript is over. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Please put like, share with friends, comment, meditate, do exercise, drink more water. That's all. Thank you. Bye.